As the college football regular season ended and the playoffs set sail, myself and the entire world couldn't wait to see the many games that would be played. Games like a revenge-filled Alabama facing against a tough Oklahoma squad, the Carson Beck-led Miami Hurricanes facing against a disruptive Texas A&M team. But then, there was one matchup that made the whole college world stop and double-check their screens. Ole Miss at this point sat 11-1 through one of the hardest conferences in all of college football in the SEC. Coached by Lane Kiffin, in which we will talk about more later, was known for their strong pass game by Austin Simmons, who went down with an ankle injury in the season, but fortunately, Trinidad Chambliss came to the rescue. And with two capable quarterbacks who broke down defenses effectively, if your secondary was lacking, don't be surprised if they put 25 plus points on your head. Which we seen from week 1, where Georgia State made their way to Oxford, Mississippi and got absolutely smacked 63-7 and sent back to ATL. In week 5, when the number 17 ranked LSU team with a chip on their shoulder got not only outplayed, but outcoached and lost 19-24. The Rebels got their first loss by an amazing Georgia team led by Kirby Smart, which was a back and forth game to the death and multiple lead changes. But when fourth quarter arrived, it was a game that can go either way. But the Bulldogs' dangerous defense figured it out with multiple 3-and-outs to seal the game 43-35. After that loss, they went to Oklahoma and gave them their second loss of the season, beating them 34-26. With the receiver talent Ole Miss had and the quarterback talent they had in Chambliss, Lane Kiffin, the offensive mastermind, was fully able to open his playbook. The flashy, confident, and explosive Rebels looked like a force to be reckoned with. Now let's look at their playoff opponent. Introducing Tulane. Yes, Tulane. Tulane is the complete opposite from Ole Miss. Tulane competed in the AAC and dominated their conference, finishing at 11-2 before their playoff appearance. They were a powerhouse, averaging over 25 points a game with their dual threat quarterback and their physical running back Jamari McClure. They also had a solid defense led by linebacker Harvey Dyson, not to mention their kicker winning the Special Teams Player of the Year. Tulane blew through Northwestern, beat Temple 37-14, and defeated at that time a promising Duke team 34-27. They were tough, relentless, and gritty, and played every snap like they had a chip on their shoulder. But more shockingly, one of their losses came week 8 from a team in Texas. Not the University of Texas, but the University of Texas at San Antonio, who at the time was 3-4 and was just coming off a loss from North Texas 17-55. Tulane lost the game against them 26-48, so UTEP beat Tulane, but then North Texas bombed UTEP, and then Tulane destroyed North Texas. What? Tulane beat them in the conference championship as well, and that ended their season strong, but now it was up to the committee to decide their fate. We expected teams like Georgia, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and Oregon to get in, but teams like Miami, who at the time were 10-2 and still didn't play in the ACC Conference Championship over a 7-5 Duke team, Notre Dame, who was also 10-2 but aren't in the conference and lost to both ranked teams Miami and Texas A&M, Alabama, who went 10-3 but played a tough SEC schedule, and a 10-2 Oklahoma, who defeated Alabama, all had to pray and hope the committee would let them in. On the flip side, G5 teams like Tulane and JMU, who dominated their conference, had to pray that the committee would let them in too over those higher teams. Texas Tech, Ohio State, Indiana, and Georgia were as expected and chosen in and had first round bye, which meant 8 more teams had to be picked. Oregon was the next, then Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma, which left 4 teams left. Bama was chosen to rematch Oklahoma, and Miami was chosen to play Texas A&M. At this point, people expected the University of Texas and Notre Dame to be the last 2, but what happened next sparked the whole college football community. JMU was selected to play Oregon, and Tulane was expected to play Ole Miss. JMU was a better team than Tulane, so their game against Oregon had fans at least curious on what the outcome would be. Now on the flip side, Tulane and Ole Miss, despite both teams having a dominant season, there was one piece of critical information that I left out. They actually played each other week 4 of the regular season. And guess what happened? Tulane completely got obliterated by Ole Miss, 41-10. Oh, and something else I left out? Remember that offensive mastermind head coach, Lane Kiffin? Yeah, he left Ole Miss and went to LSU before the playoffs. With this game being a rematch of a complete blowout and Lane Kiffin leaving, it was a highly anticipated game for all of the wrong reasons. This isn't a TCU type story where they beat a powerhouse to get to that point where they played Georgia. These two teams have already played each other, and it's the first round of the playoffs. But hey, we knew Tulane had the discipline and grittiness to at least fight.
Year's Day, a step closer for a hopeful national championship.
I think a big question coming into this one, what would they look like without Lane Kiffin? I think the answer in this one's pretty simple. They were dominant in all 3 phases of the game.
Oh. Yeah. That's how we all felt. The game ended with a score 10-45, similar to the first time they played. It was a brutal game, and I felt like what failed Tulane simply was money. With Lane Kiffin being gone, I feel both teams was on par when it came to coaching. They just didn't have the money like Ole Miss to get those type of caliber players. The skill gap was so big to the point where even if Tulane had Ole Miss's coaching staff, Ole Miss would still win by that amount. The ending begged a big question. Why did they make the playoffs over Notre Dame? Many fans speculate it's a warning that Notre Dame needs to join the conference. This game led some people to wonder if G5 teams should ever be in the playoffs again. In my opinion, I feel like if they had a rule that prohibited G5 teams from making the playoffs, then it would be no incentive of going to a G5 school if there's nothing they're competing for other than their conference. I feel like no matter what school you go to, you want to win, not only win, but you want to be the best. So at that point, with the transfer portal rules, I feel like players will only go to those G5 schools to transfer somewhere bigger, which in fact will ruin a lot of G5 teams. So I feel like they need some type of G5 spot in the playoffs, the best of the best. And Tulane and JMU were the best of the best. Talking about JMU, they got destroyed as well. At least they had a little bit more fight though. But let me know your opinions in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Peace.